Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's November 29th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And another sideways day. You can see we traded much higher today. It looked like we were going to finally rally, and we ended up selling off. And looks like we closed maybe. It looks like we closed maybe slightly down. I can't really tell by that bar. Just looking at the closing price. On this one, it was 45.63, and today we closed at 45.63, same price basically. So no change from yesterday, and this bar here that's starting is uh, where we opened up at 5 o'clock. Not much has happened yet. So anyway, we're still just working sideways. I still think we're overdue for a correction here. Never say never with this market because I never would have dreamed we'd have shot up like this, like we did right before the Thanksgiving holiday. But all the same, we did. At some point, I would expect we could sell off again here. The thing is, there's a larger channel working up here that we had a break of, and we don't have a new high. So we may put in that new high before this thing could go lower. That may be what we're working on. I don't have that on here. Let me just draw it on here. Let's see. I mean, that looks correct to me there. Just use a little different color so it's easier to see. Let me get right off the low here and adjust this just slightly. I mean, that looks valid to me right there. So we didn't get a lot of touches off this trend line, but that's the way it goes. And we got a break, and we've never made a new high on this channel up, if that's correct. Um, I mean, maybe it was more like this. And this is the two legs up on a retest, but that's a very large two legs up. Um, Again, it could be that this was the low end of this, and we had an overshoot and just reversed, and this is a separate trend, but we do have a close outside and new high on that as well. So any way you look at it, plus the main thing is we're in very overbought territory up here. We've relieved some of that going sideways, so we could push up again, but the path of least resistance, in my opinion, is down. Now that doesn't mean we're turning down tomorrow, the next day. I mean, timing this thing is the hard part. Right now, we're just working sideways, and we could keep doing that. We could start trending higher and go much higher, or we could turn down. So it's really hard to say at this point. Let me just zoom in here a little close. But I showed you what I'm seeing on the chart, and everything's pointing to at least a correction back to the midline at some point. I mean, we haven't even been back to the midline since back in end of October. So needless to say, we're overdue for a correction, and I'll leave it at that. But we'll see what happens. But again, we just more sideways today. So I mean, the thing is, this we traded way up here and sold off. So it's like they take it up with low volume, and then once the market opens, it sells off. That's what's kind of happened the last couple of trading days. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. But let's flip over to our 2,000 tick chart and go through the trades, and I'll show you what I saw today. Okay, we had a big spike and channel down. That's how I saw it. Um, and on the daily chart, we had a reversal looking type day bar. So maybe we're topping out. I mean, I'm not ready to call a top yet because every time I've thought we've been close or it even semi looked like we were going to top out, the thing shoots higher. So I'm not ready to say, hey, we need to see a couple of follow through days before I'm going to say, hey, that's a topping action. But that does, I mean, there's been a lot of sideways as you saw on the daily chart, but that big shoot up, the big stem that shoots up higher and then closes lower, looks like a type of reversal day, but we'll just have to see. So Early on, it looked like it was like we were going to have a very strong day. We had a spike in channel up, but look how most of this movement came during the overnight session, and then right at the open, we got a little burst up, probably off this 7:30 news. I didn't mark that. Uh, let me mark that real quick. Okay, there it is. I marked it, added it to the chart. It doesn't really change anything because we didn't really have a trade that I liked until the regular open. And let me zoom in here so we can see this a little better. Sometimes I forget to zoom in, and I know it's harder for you guys to see on the video. But here it is. We had this spike channel up, and then we corrected and got a break. We almost made a new high, then tried again, and we just ended up going sideways. But you can see where it catches this trend line. This spike, we had a spike up and into a channel, and it catches it right there. And that is a second entry long. Notice the new high. First entry, second entry. This is close to being blue. I went back and forth, but you saw we're still getting a little resistance right along that area there, but we've already pushed through it twice, so we probably cleaned that out. So you may want to take that with that confirming that trend line and being a nice reversal bar. But if not, when it broke lower and turned up and closed outside, if it breaks higher than that, go with it. I wouldn't trade this on the engulfing bar. You could, but I wouldn't because it's a doji type bar with no body or a very small body, and I don't trust trading those on the engulfing bar. If it's a full bar or something, I tend to like them. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat there. But I wouldn't trade an engulfing bar on a bar like that. Make sure it's a nice full-bodied bar is the way I would describe it if I'm going to take an engulfing bar. But this turns out to be a really nice trade. There's actually a failure right here, but it doesn't set up like one, and I wouldn't trade a failure there. Yeah, you needed to enter on one of these two. This probably being the better play. You got a little better entry if you were more aggressive here, but you're taking more of a chance too. I mean, it's 8 ticks, so it's not huge, but anyway, either one of them works, and you end up getting a close outside on this little trend and a new high all in one bar. And then we're just working sideways, and prices are just coming back to the blue trend line. And you can see we get a little failed break lower here. We've tested that multiple times. You get a little failed break lower, and this trend line holds. I like going long there. It runs up to the highs and it's still finding resistance. And then you get a break, but you get a high or low here, and you got room to scalp out. I like entering there. If you don't have room to scalp out, maybe you reconsider this one because we have not pushed through and held on this yet. Even though we pushed through here, they beat it back quick. Same thing here. It broke through a little bit, but they beat it back real quick. So there's no proof that we can push through there yet. So you got to be real careful, and you got to have room to get out. So I like that. That turns out to be a great trade. Just keeps going higher. You would have got a runner on it. And there is a high or low here. It's just a first entry. So I don't think you can take that if you draw your trend line. You just can't take that. And we just reverse here. So you got your break and a new high. Sometimes you get 2 legs, but you need a second entry before you shoot for that, or something better than this anyway. And the next thing you know, we're going lower. And I don't see any way to get in that sell off there. You move too far here for a lower high. There's not much room to scalp out. Plus, you might still have a little support across there. So there's just no way to get in that. Drops down here, and then we just start going sideways. I don't see anything. You don't want to go long yet, and there's no shorts there. We do get a close outside and a new low right here. But I still wouldn't take that trade. And you can see it probably wouldn't have worked. I don't know how much movement that is, but it doesn't look like there's 6 ticks there at all. So you're going to come up 1 tick short right there. Even though there's room here, most of this turned down. That's where that should be. And I just wouldn't take that trade. If you got stuck in it here, when it came back a third time and couldn't push through and starts trending down, I would exit that trade. Because you know what happens on a triple test, it probably goes lower. The problem is you just don't have enough room to take the short. But notice it pushes down and comes back, and then it confirms this trend line. That you really confirmed it here, but I'd want another touch just to be sure, and that comes right here. And that's like 3 ticks, I think. Yeah, 3 ticks. I mean, that's a very low risk entry. Yeah, it's a first entry, but it's a little breakout pullback, and it does confirm the trend line, and it's 3 ticks. So that's about as low a risk entry as you're going to ever get, and turns out to be a great little trade. Of course, it only goes down to the lows, and then we're bouncing again. Again, I wouldn't go long here. You just really don't get a short on this one. It actually pushes outside the trend line, comes back, and we're just chopping around here. This one's tempting, but you only have 1 point there, and so you see you would have gotten burned on that. Just don't take that trade. Just sit tight and wait till it is trending again. It ends up failed out the bottom and succeeded out the top. But notice you get 2 legs up, and so that's really a second entry. It's not a perfect bar, but with it being right off the a possible key entry point on the bigger point, you wouldn't have this trend line yet. That just kind of sets the point. So you really wouldn't have that yet. Let me back out where you can see it a little bit better, and let me readjust this just a hair. But you can see that right there. That it's just a failed breakout, 2 legs up, and again, it's 4 ticks, very low risk. So I like going short right there, just to ride it back to the EMA, and maybe something better comes along, and then you get a lower high here. This is close to being red. If you took it, I mean, depending on how you saw it, it's not a lot of room back to the EMA, and it could bounce there one more time. So I'm a little wary without having enough room, but at the same time, we're probably going lower. But notice we tested that breakout right there, so it could pull back and give you another leg up. So I marked it green for that reason. It turns out to be a great entry, and it just drops on down. There's a hidden second entry here. I didn't mark it because it looks too congested, so that's my problem with it. It broke higher first and then turned down, so if you took that on an engulfing bar, then I would be okay with it. But you can't trade that, wait till this closes, because it's right down here with not much room, and you see it takes it a few minutes before it takes off. And you get another little entry right here, but I just think it's too close to those lows. And of course it comes on down and you get a close outside, but 2 legs up, and so that's a second entry short. If you draw your little trend channel, you get a break and new high, get the break, new high, and then it's heading lower. So a second entry short right there. Again, the signal bar is not perfect and it's not quite back to the EMA, but this is looking really weak here, and we're not down. Actually, I'll take that back. You don't know where the low side is. You could have set this trend line on this swing here, but you don't really know where the lows are. It looks like it's close in there. It looks like the midline's fitting, but you don't really know where this line is at this point. So that's the other problem you got with going short in there anymore. But I like this one just because you're probably going to make a new low here regardless. But taking this one, there's a first entry, second entry, so it's a failure. Doesn't really set up, and it's not really where you want to take a failure. But it drops down here and it bounces. And guess what, too? This was the close from yesterday. So a lot of times you'll retest that. Notice we opened. I forgot to talk about that. We opened way up here. So this was the target we were trying to fill the whole time, because it has that gap from where it opened and closed yesterday and opened today. And notice that's where we're bouncing. But when you got that higher low right off that line, I like going long there. This is played out to the downside, and so you get a spike and channel up here again. We've had spike and channels in both directions all day. And so this is a higher low after trending back and testing the breakout and filling that gap. And also, even though there's a tick down, that looks like all one move. So first entry, all one move, second entry. So this feels like a failed second entry, but it's also a little channel here and a failed break out of it. So there's a couple of different reasons to like that trade. And then it pushes up, pulls back, gives a little breakout pullback, but no setup there. And I don't see anything else the rest of the way. We're just working sideways here. This one is tempting, but there's not enough room to get out, and we hadn't been able to successfully push up, so you really can't take that. And it doesn't give you any chance to really short it here. Maybe a little breakout pullback short, but not much room. I mean, you got to risk 9 ticks and there's not even room to scalp out. And you see how it kind of bounces before it pushes lower? That could have burned you. So that's why we can't take that trade. But we just start chopping sideways, and then we get a failed breakout. And by the counts, there's a second entry there, but you can treat that like a failed breakout. Notice the new low, first entry, second entry. That doesn't really look like a leg, but still by the counts, it's second entry, and it's a failed breakout. And it's also a retest of this area right here. So I like going short there. And that's a quick, easy move. And then we bounce, and we're just back in here. And notice we're bouncing along. Then you get a failed break lower. And so nice signal bar, it closes back in. Plenty of room back at the top. I like that one. And you see that's all you could really get out of it too. This one's tempting, but there's not room to get out. And then there's definitely not room here. And so you really just don't get a chance to do anything else with it dropping down through there. It's unfortunate because that's the prevailing trend is down at this point, and that does confirm that trend line. And that is a second entry, but I still am not crazy about taking that trade because you see what happened, and it could have stopped you out. You just can't enter out of that stuff. And you get your break, and you're just working sideways again here. And again, I don't see any entry out of here that you could take. So you don't get a chance to enter with a prevailing trend. And then suddenly you get a close and move to a new low, and that takes you into 230. So there's just really not anything that it sets up in the afternoon that I like. So really the last trade was just before 1 o'clock. So yeah, just not much happening. I mean, there's a hidden second entry there, but it looks a little sideways and congested. So it's not much room to the lows. So just nothing that I would be willing to take there, especially that late in the day. So there it is. We had a spiking channel up that suddenly spiked down and went into a channel down and sold off for most of the rest of the day. We recovered a little off the lows, but not by much. So is this a reversal day? We'll see what tomorrow brings. Kind of looks that way, but we won't know until tomorrow and see if we get any follow through selling. But anyway, there it is. That's how I saw it. Hope you had a good trading day. Hope you found most of this stuff yourself. If you're new to this, just keep working on it. Your goal should at first be to see this stuff easily after the fact, comparing your stuff to mine. And once you can easily see it after the fact, then you have to start sim trading it every day, taking every trade you see that you think meets our criteria. Don't worry if you're right or wrong. Just take the trades, and then at the end of the day, that's when you go back through and look and say, hey, was I right? Was I wrong? If I was wrong, figure out what you missed, figure out why you were wrong, and correct it. If you were right and you found it, then you're seeing it. You're starting to see it in real time. Reinforce the right things and correct the wrong things. And that's how you get better every day. If you just come in here and sim trade every day, and then at the end of the day, you close your charts and you walk away, guess what? You're not going to get better. I try to say this all the time. People never seem to hear it. The way you get better and the way you gain confidence in taking the trades, because confidence is a lot of it too. People don't trust what they're seeing, but the way you do that is through sim trading and reinforcing it and learning from your mistakes. So you have to study at the end of every day. I'm going to say that one more time. Trading alone will not make you better. This is a skill. And if you don't work on the fundamentals of the skill, which is studying their trades and making corrections and learning how to see it and see what you missed, you're not going to get better. You're just going to spin your wheels, and eventually you're going to get bored with a simulator, and you're going to try to go live, and you're going to be a donor. Don't be a donator. Don't donate to the cause. They need donors to keep this thing moving, because there's 10% of the traders are skilled and the rest of them are donors. That's the simple truth. And it's not the skilled trader's fault, it's the donator's fault. The donor's fault, because they have unrealistic expectations. They think they can read a manual or read a book and practice a little bit, and then they're going to make money. And it's not. This is a tough skill. And it pays really well with the best hours and best. I mean, there's no real overhead other than your equipment. There's no offices. There's no office space needed. There's no employees needed. Just you and a computer, some trading skills, and a trading account. That's all it takes to really get into this. So almost anybody can get into it. But the only way you're going to last is to become skilled at this. You got to be skilled. This is a skill. I mean, you couldn't expect to go buy a baseball bat tomorrow and walk into the World Series and hit a World Series pitcher to get the winning run in the ninth inning with 2 outs. The odds of you doing that are astronomical. If you did get a hit, it would be an accident. And trading is no different. You can't expect to go get a computer and a trading account and read a book or a manual and then suddenly start beating skilled traders. The only way for you to make $1, somebody has to lose $1. And the skilled traders do not lose because they know what they're doing and you don't. Or most of you do not understand what you're doing. And you have unrealistic expectations. So first of all, have realistic expectations and then work on your skill set. How do you do that? By sim trading every day, studying and taking all the trades you see. Don't worry if you're wrong or right. Just let them play out and then hit the studying those trades in your chart at the end of the day. If you do that every day, you'll start to get better and you'll start to improve. And then eventually you might become skilled enough to step in that batter's box with 2 outs and get the winning hit in the World Series, because the ES is the markets are the World Series of trading. They're full of skilled traders that will take your money from you just as soon as blink. So make sure you have realistic expectations and you follow the process the way I'm describing it. A few of you will and you'll be successful. The rest of you won't listen, and eventually you'll continue to be a donor, and eventually you'll run out of money or you'll give up and quit. That's what happens to 90% of the traders. But until they do, they're donators. They're donating to the cause. They're donors. Don't be a donor. All righty, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you had a good trading day. I hope you're learning something. I hope you're listening to me. Just keep working on it. It's a skill. It doesn't come overnight. Have realistic expectations, and I'll see you tomorrow. This is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.